BYU and Colorado are going bowling against each other. Let's break down this bowl slate. Did your team get screwed? This is Locked On Big 12.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome into Locked On Big 12. I'm Drake Toll from America's #1 Big 12 podcast, Locked On Big 12. Thank you for making this show your first listen every single day. We will start with BYU and Colorado are both going to bowl games and playing each other. TCU, Baylor to West Virginia. We'll break down all these bowl matchups. Then we'll cover the college football playoff doesn't respect us. Shocking. I know we did not get the bye that we deserved. And Scott Frost is the new coach at UCF. Is that a good thing? Should everybody else be scared of the Knights now? If you hit subscribe, I get to keep my job. Wow. 3 weeks ago, had you told me, Drake, BYU and Colorado will play in the postseason, I would have said, yeah, you're just picking that up now. It's the Big 12 championship game between the Buffs and the Cougars. But no, that's not the case. While they will play in the postseason, it will be in the Alamo Bowl, two teams from the Big 12 squaring off, because the Alamo Bowl has this contract that continues where somebody from the Pac-12 has got to play a Big 12 team. And since the Pac-12 doesn't exist anymore, it might just be a team from the Pac-12 who's in the Big 12 playing a Big 12 squad. And that's exactly what we have between two teams that should have won a Big 12 championship in their own eyes. They were tied atop the conference as regular season champions, and now they meet. Here's my only question, and this applies for Kansas State against Rutgers or West Virginia against Memphis. Do you care? The one thing that I've loved about covering the Big 12 Conference for the last 6 years is that during bowl season, it feels like every team cares. Sans like UCF against Georgia Tech last year, we are there to try to win a bowl. Oh, we're playing LSU. Oh, we're playing Texas A&M. Oh, we're playing Auburn. We are full force. Very few guys opting out, going to put on for Manhattan, Kansas, Morgantown, West Virginia, Lubbock, Texas. This isn't a matter of, I could get drafted in the top 10. It's instead a matter of, I can go win a bowl game for my school. And I do not believe that there are 8 new schools in the Big 12. Anybody should veer from that in this conference. Travis Hunter, and based on what we've gotten out of Deion Sanders, I do believe this is the case. Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders, Shiloh Sanders should all play in the bowl game against BYU. What happens if the backup quarterback or the backup corner or the backup whoever for BYU and Colorado comes out and they square off and the final score 17-13? You go, wonder what would it have actually been like between those two schools? But if you get a proper representation of both squads, the Heisman candidates against Jake Retzlaff or LJ Martin, you now understand what we could have gotten in a Big 12 championship game. We no longer have to ask what if. My one major request, it's the first thing I thought about the Big 12 bowl schedule, was, can you please play the game? That's the issue here. Will anybody show up for the Alamo Bowl? That's another huge part of this. You Colorado fans, you BYU fans, you cried and moaned all weekend long. Oh, well, we would have been there. The whole stadium would have been packed. And Arizona State and Iowa State didn't fill the place up. This is your opportunity. You know what's not that far from Dallas, Texas? Check's watch. San Antonio, Texas. If you want to prove that your schools are the bell cows of this conference when it comes to a brand, then show up to the football game that you're playing in the Alamo Bowl on December 28th. You get way more time than Arizona State and Iowa State had to plan that. That's certainly the most intriguing bowl matchup of the entire slate, no doubt. I do think Baylor LSU is obviously there. I very much like Texas Tech and Arkansas. I don't really know how that's going to go. I do think Texas Tech wins. I like the Big 12 in all of these matchups, actually. It's insane to me that we built this favorable of a slate. But the one that stands out outside of BYU, Colorado, and outside of whoever Arizona State plays in their Peach Bowl, Iowa State, Miami. The best part of being a Big 12 school, and I already mentioned it earlier, and Iowa State gets this, is while everybody on Miami's roster is opting out, like, oh, well, I guess I have to play anymore. We're number 13 in the country, missed the playoff. My season's done. Iowa State gets to use this to play the guys who have redshirted. Iowa State gets to use this to play guys who need more playing time, who need to get ready for next season. Iowa State gets to use this for extra practice, and they get to use this for Jalen Noel, Jaden Higgins to play football, Abu Sama to play football, Carson Hansen to play football. That's the beauty of the Big 12. We will, listen, if you're new to this conference, if you're one of those Pac-12 teams that came over, or if you're even BYU or UCF or whoever, we will play, by and large, the same roster you saw in the regular season. That's how the Big 12 does its business. We treat a bowl game as an opportunity. We don't treat a bowl game as a nuisance, similar to many teams across college football. Now, that could also go for Memphis. It could go for Rutgers. I think those schools will throw out a pretty good portion of the guys who contributed to their teams this year, because what else are they going to do? Most of those rosters are not going to the NFL. They're going to play as much college football as they can. TCU, Louisiana, that's also the case. Louisiana wants to beat a Power 4 school. Memphis wants to beat a team without a head coach. Rutgers wants to upset Kansas State, understanding that Rutgers and bowl games are two things that have not gone together very well. Then there's Arkansas. Then there's Colorado, BYU, Miami, Iowa State. There's even a TCU or a Texas Tech or a Baylor or an LSU where you go, hold on. In these matchups, you could either very well be upset or grab a win, but what does it mean? And we, the Big 12, have to establish that bowl games still mean something, because now you have a bragging right over a conference that just ragged you for months on end. I listened ad nauseum yesterday during these college football playoff talks to, no two conferences are created equally. Yeah, our teams would boat race Vanderbilt and Oklahoma. Yeah, well, no two conferences can really be, they're not equal, so we should probably, kind of balance out. Yeah, our conference would kill Kentucky. Thanks so much for playing. See you later. I'm not buying that. Now we have an opportunity against Arkansas, against Arkansas, by the way, against Miami, against LSU, against Rutgers, even, to prove the Big 12. So we have a bunch of intriguing bowl matchups where Big 12 teams can step up and showcase this conference above the SEC, above the Big 10. And then the crown jewel of bowl season is BYU and Colorado. We finally get it. We get what I've asked for. Thank you. It's my one big thing. I'm begging you, play the guys. I think Kalani Sitake will do it. I do think Deion Sanders will do it. Sonny, do it. Chris, do it. Whoever West Virginia throws out there, do it. Joey, you should do it. I bet Joey will. Matt Campbell, I bet he will. Dave Aranda, I bet he will. And that puts us in a great spot to have a huge bowl season and prove the Big 12 doesn't roll over. We don't make excuses. We play football, and we win football games. Coming up, the College Football Playoff Committee sucks all of the time, and they did again this weekend. This is Locked On Big 12, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by GameTime. GameTime's where I go. I say, hey, GameTime, could you do me a favor and, give me some tickets to the thing that's coming up this weekend? Because I would love those tickets. And GameTime says, well, what thing this weekend? I say, well, the Tyler Childers concert, GameTime. And they say, well, we have the lowest prices guaranteed. We could give you those. And I say, yes, GameTime. That is exactly what I've wanted. GameTime has the lowest price guaranteed, or 110% of the difference for you. That's exactly right. See your seat through the seat view. Get a panoramic view from your seat, and curated deals make it easier to find the exact event you want to go to. All in pricing. Toggle that feature and see the price up front. No surprise fees at checkout. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download GameTime today. What time is it, buddy? You best bet. It's game time. Congratulations. Arizona State is in the college football playoff. They will receive a bye as well. But here's what I don't understand. Why does the path of the 4 seed look so much tougher than the path of the 5 seed? Why is Boise State a 3 seed when Arizona State will sit at the 4? But I have some solace to give you. If you hit subscribe, I had to keep my job. First reaction to this. Stop. Whatever you're going to do in the next 5, 6, 7 years against teams in the non-conference who are Power 4, stop. Oh, you're cool home and home with Maryland? Cancel it. Shoot, we got a home and home with Auburn. Cancel it. Oh, we have a home and home with SMU. It's over. Play Wofford. Play Mercer. Play William and Mary, but they left Mary at home. Do not. No, that's it. Strength of schedule doesn't matter. If it mattered, Boise State, whose best win was a loss to Oregon, would not be where they are. Arizona State should be the 3 seed here because strength of schedule has to be taken into account more so. Do I think that SMU should be left out for Alabama? No. Does Alabama have a better strength of schedule? Yes. But Bama has also lost to 6-6 Vanderbilt and 6-6 Oklahoma. I get SMU being in over that. In this scenario for Arizona State and Boise State, with Arizona State a win off of where Boise State is, and a Boise State team that's barely beating San Jose State or Nevada or Oregon State, why on earth? So listen to Boise State. Their path right now is to play the winner of Penn State and SMU. Guess what? That's in the Fiesta Bowl, too. If we're the 3 seed, if Arizona State's the 3 seed, we get Fiesta Bowl. Home field against SMU or Penn State. I am not that scared of SMU or Penn State. Why? Rhett Lashley and company. What's their big win? What are their big games? Penn State. When has James Franklin ever won a big game? Boise State, I'm not scared of. And I'll tell you why I'm not very scared of Texas either, coming up in a second. But this format, here's what I've learned. That BYU win against SMU. I would love to see who's better between BYU and SMU. I wish there was a way to determine that. Oh, shoot. There was. And we won. The Big 12 won. But the rhetoric is, yeah, that was in the first couple of weeks of the season. So now we're sitting at this part of the season. What you're telling me, in essence, what the committee kind of just said, these games that are played in the first month, your cool non-conference home and home, they don't matter whatsoever. All they care about is that number of wins next to your name. For better or worse, all you have to do is win the games in front of the teams in front of you and make your path as easy as possible. You want an example of that? Can I give you an example of that? Boise State, the Broncos. They didn't play a Power 4 schedule. They played a schedule that was strength of schedule like 86 in the country. That is pitiful. But they're the number 3 team in the country going into the playoff. Why? Because that's the way this entire bracket is set up. It is stupid. Might I remind you, arguably the father of the 12-team playoff, former Big 12 Commissioner Bob Bowlesby. Bob, good to see you. Thanks a lot for this monstrosity. Arizona State now has to suffer for the good of Boise State. I understand that I'm opening this with, I feel like there's some spite to this. I'm very excited Arizona State got a bye. Clemson getting a bye would have been absurdity. They're the number 16 team in the country. Arizona State's number 12, according to the committee. Alabama's 11. Why is Alabama ahead of Arizona State? I don't know, but Bama's not in. And in this funky, weird way that we're doing this, Arizona State still gets the bye. And they get Texas. While they could be in Boise State's seat and get the winner of SMU and Penn State, or heck, I would rather be for Arizona State. I would almost rather be where Penn State is at 6. I'd rather be 6 than 4. Play SMU and then play Boise State and then go to the college football playoff semifinal against Georgia, Indiana, or Notre Dame, very likely Georgia. Here's the good news of the way the bracket shakes out. We avoid Georgia. Okay. We avoid, I think avoiding Notre Dame even could be fun. We don't avoid Texas. We don't avoid Clemson. We get the winner of that one. And I'm just, buddy, this is the same Texas team that won one Big 12 championship in 14 years. I watched them against Baylor 2 years ago. Struggle to get a point on the board. Like Steve Sarkisian's running plays with inside of 5 seconds to go just to put the first touchdown up for Texas. I watched them get steamrolled in the Big 12 for years. And now they walk into the SEC, and guess who Texas' best win is against? Nobody. Their best win is their losses. That's not good. Oh, well, Texas would blow the doors off of Arizona State. Yeah, I bet Texas would blow the doors off of Vanderbilt, too. And Arkansas, no? And those games were neck and neck. Airtight. And you're telling me that they got a big leg up over Arizona State? I bet Clemson would beat the absolute mess out of Pitt, who is far worse than Arizona State. I bet Clemson absolutely would do that. No. I don't hate this second round matchup, first round for us, the quarterfinal matchup for Arizona State, because these two teams just weren't scary every week. Arizona State, the last 5-6 weeks, has been the scariest team arguably in the country, beating up to the conference championship game. It was the one conference championship game where you thought, dang, this is lopsided. Arizona State pummeled a very good, very even quality Iowa State team. They're playing better football than Texas. They're playing better football than Clemson. What's the difference in Arizona State and Texas? Texas just lost a game. Clemson lost one 2 weeks ago. Arizona State hasn't felt loss since early October. That's going to go a long way. And with Cam Scatterbo at running back, the way that Sam Levitt has played, the skill position guys that stepped up, even to Guillory, who's now been inserted in the fold. I believe under Kenny Dillingham, who was the OC at Oregon that Arizona State will play when they win the quarterfinal, I believe under Dillingham, they've got a fighter's chance to beat anybody, especially these teams that can't seem to beat the brakes off of Vanderbilt. They can't seem to beat the brakes off of Arkansas or Pitt. Then that semifinal matchup against Oregon, I love it. Oh, dude, I love it. It's not Georgia. I wouldn't want to play Georgia. It's not Alabama. I still wouldn't want to play Alabama. It's Oregon or Ohio State or Tennessee. The same Tennessee team that lost to Arkansas. The same Ohio State team that lost to Michigan. And an Oregon team, their 8-point lackluster, terrible defensive performance win against Penn State that I'm just not that afraid of, because guess what? Kenny Dillingham was just there. If anybody knows Oregon, it's Dillingham. And I don't watch their games the same way I watch a Georgia, whose quarterback sucks, by the way. Is anybody in college football that dominant this year? I think the answer is no. Even Oregon, I think the answer is no. I am not afraid of what Oregon did. I've seen Dylan Gabriel get eaten up, spit back out, 28-year-old Dylan Gabriel in Big 12 games. He's a Big 12 quarterback. And I don't see Oregon being able to completely stop Cam Scatterbo. I don't see Texas, who's got a good run defense, being able to do it either. Then let Sam Levitt take the top off, because the kid can. I want the 3. The 3 is an easier path, but it's the give and the take. As the 3 seed, very confident Arizona. I want the 6. I want to play Boise State in the quarterfinals. And then go to the semifinal and play Georgia, and you go, oh, shoot, this one's going to be tough. I really don't mind Texas. For an Arizona State fan who's like, well, it was fun. You know, Texas is good. They're probably going to beat us. Dog, I've watched that team for 15 years. You're okay. You're really okay. They had one good year in the Big 12, and it just so happened to be the recency bias the year they left. And then this year, they played nobody. Their best win is a loss. Oh, or 8-4 Texas A&M. Because we know Texas A&M's a perennial powerhouse. They never underachieve. I do want the 3, but I guess if we really start thinking about this, the 3, there's Georgia. So let's be where we are. I'm fine with this. This is good. It's fine. Everything's fine. I'm excited for the rest of this week to give you further coverage. Next 2 weeks to talk about that. Well, shoot. We don't get a darn Big 12 game for 22 days. New Year's Eve. Might have to go to that Peach Bowl, Atlanta. God, I would have loved the Fiesta Bowl. But here we are. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is the number one place to bet on everything, anything and everything. FanDuel.com. I go to FanDuel.com right now and I bet $5 on the NFL. And you know what FanDuel says? Thanks for doing that. If your bet hits, we'll give you $150 in bonus bets. So right now, the FanDuel Sportsbook app is giving you everything you need to place bets on the NFL all in one place. Get a hunch in the middle of a game. Check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, so much more on the same page where you place your bets. FanDuel.com to join today. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That is FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Visit FanDuel and do it today. On 3 is confirmed. Scott Frost has been rehired as the head coach at UCF after a successful tenure in 2016 and 2017, then goes to Nebraska, and now he is back. I do not think, if you hit subscribe, I get to keep my job, by the way. I do not think that Scott Frost's tenure at Nebraska should be held against him when we talk about his ability to come back to UCF and win. When he took the job in Orlando, things were bleak. He was replacing a guy who had been there, who got fired mid-season, 0-8. They finished 0-12. They need somebody, anybody, to come clean up this insane mess at a school that already knew what it was like to win. The same school that beat Baylor in the 2014 Fiesta Bowl. Like, they had been there. Hey, could you help come back and fix all of this? Scott Frost, who had not been a Division I FBS head coach, walks in the door, goes from 0-12 to 6-7, gets you to the Cure Bowl. Instant success. Instant success compared to 0-12 for sure. Then, going from losing to Maryland in that first year to beating the brakes off of Maryland in 2017 on the road, he showed that this isn't just a successful record from a UCF standpoint because they were in a worse conference in the Big 12. It's not like, oh, yeah, well, Scott Frost, he won, but they weren't in the Big 12. Can he win actual Power 5 football game? Yes. From beating the absolute snot out of Maryland that season, finishing undefeated, and his team beating Auburn in the Peach Bowl, he proved at UCF and also on that schedule, a game on the road against SMU, a game on the road against Cincinnati, and they played Memphis. Cincinnati, SMU, both now Power 4 teams. Memphis, considered one of the biggest expansion candidates in the country for a major conference when realignment comes back around. He was winning games against good opponents. When the time called, and it was like, hey, Scott, we need you to go beat this really good Power 4 team or any Power 4 team, he would do it. It was done in the Peach Bowl. And you set up the next guy for a Fiesta Bowl appearance the next season. Then at Nebraska, here's where I really start to give Scott Frost an excuse. When he got to Nebraska, this was a situation of a native son had returned. This wasn't, oh, yeah, that guy coached our football team for a bit. This was, hey, we have harbored this guy as a player. He's a legend. So much so that the governor of the state named September 1st Scott Frost Day. I don't really know how the process works, but I don't think you can unday something. I think now that September 1st is Scott Frost Day in Nebraska, it's still Scott Frost Day, which is a little bit awkward because they fired the guy. That's the kind of pressure he was walking into of, oh, shoot, they want me to win a national championship. I've only been a head coach and not even at the Power 5 level for 2 years. Now I'm going to pilot Nebraska. I can do this. 4-8, 5-7, 3-5, 3-9, and then fired after 3 games. Just 3 games in that 2022 season. 16-31, 10-26 in Big Ten games. Not very good. His best finish in the Big Ten was his first year when they went 3-6 in conference play. But I do not think that is the Scott Frost. There's a big correlation here to Rich Rodriguez, Rich Rod has been massive in this West Virginia conversation. He's the guy who was a legend there, left, wasn't a legend at Michigan, and now with the opportunity to come back, all you have is a good taste in your mouth from the ability for that guy to work with your university and win. That's what Scott Frost did. He found a niche at UCF that worked. Did he bite off more than he could chew by going to Nebraska? Absolutely, and it fell apart all around him. But all that you know as a UCF fan is a guy who wins. And, by the way, a guy who's a pretty darn good representation of just like human beings. I've never heard anything bad about Scott Frost in the coaching world. And here's further proof of that. He was, again, we can't sugarcoat it, terrible at Nebraska. They gave him 4 complete years. They let him go into year 5 at Nebraska, sucking. He went from 4-8 in year 1 to 3-9 in year 4. And their administration was like, well, shoot. He wasn't a problem. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, got to get this guy out of here. We can't work with him. They did everything they could to hold on to the guy who September 1st was commemorated to. That's a good sign. And now what he did, and he only had 2 years. Here's what's crazy, dog, is Scott Frost didn't have the same transfer portal that we do today. It wasn't like the circus that it is now. He didn't have NIL. He had to walk into 0-12 and be like, okay, this is the roster I pretty much have. I can bring in one guy, two guys, a few different pieces and try to build, but I'm going to have to win with what I've got. And he goes to UCF where there isn't a lot of pressure because 0-12, you want something. And he won. Yes, to an extent with someone else's players, but I don't think that should hurt you here. He was building and not only building, but successfully winning in the middle of a rebuild. That's really tough to do. So that was the biggest key for me was, hey, we need to hire somebody that has a Florida tie, that knows Florida, that knows UCF. Scott Frost certainly knows UCF. The dude went 13-0 and won a national championship there. And he can recruit Florida. That's the biggest thing this dude's got to do is just recruit Florida. He's going to be there more than 2 years now. He's not going to be poached by somebody big. This is sorry, I'm back. Hey, Bobby Petrino, a wild example for me to use. An insane thing to come out of my mouth, but it will. Louisville starts winning games at Louisville. I think he took him to a Sugar Bowl or something. Starts winning games at Louisville, goes to Atlanta to coach in the NFL, has a really bad, weird hodgepodge of everything that happens in that decade span between first Louisville and second Louisville. What does he do when he comes back to coach the Cardinals? He has a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback. This isn't like, oh no, they brought in the guy who was bad. I mean, is this going to work out? It's happened before. Dudes return. Bill Snyder, these are different. But there are guys who are like Bill Snyder says, you know what, I'm hanging it up, I'm done. And they called and they're like, hey, Bill, things aren't going too hot. Granted, Bill Snyder didn't go coach Nebraska into the absolute ground, but they're like, Bill, things aren't going too hot. Could you come back, please? Comes back, has Heisman Trophy candidate Colin Klein, and takes Kansas State to the #1 team in the country. These work. Things like this work. Like if you're a UCF fan, you got to be excited. That guy is back on your sidelines. The guy that brought you back to prominence is on your sidelines. And I think if you're a Big 12 school, this is the first time that Scott Frost will have coached UCF in the Big 12, coached UCF at the Power 4 level. But I do think he reinvigorates a lot of the donors that are still there, a lot of the fans that are still there, a lot of people who saw him win at such a high level already. Check. Approved. My stamp of approval as host of Locked On Big 12. To you, Scott Frost. That's cool, man. We're going to see Scott Frost in a UCF hat on the sidelines. That's freaking cool, dude. He's good. That's fun. That's fun. I like what you've done with this. You got to win, though. This has been, it always will be, Locked On. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. Dos grande.